And it is Thursday morning, the 26th of May. We are in the Chicago region, having survived multiple thunderstorms and downpours, so spring is fully embraced the land, as it were. How are you this morning, Barrett?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, just being in the present moment. I think that's the goal always. It's especially nice this time of year when the flowers are blooming. There's some irises right outside our window that are just about to start. So really enjoyable.
Yeah, we've got roses that are getting very happy here, and interestingly enough, we had, if you can hear in the background there, that's the puppy greeting the male person. But we had the peace rose, which was a red and white rose, and then we had a yellow rose, and then we had a red rose. And after last winter, all three of them reverted back, and so now we have three red roses,
Hmm,
which is kind of interesting.
I didn't know they changed color.
They will revert back. The original rose stock is the red rose, and
Oh,
it's not the classic rose that you give to your girlfriend on holidays. It's that single or double rose that opens up and lays flat, and they're really quite beautiful. Um, and they are a member of the strawberry family. So.
I I had no idea.
Mhm.
Huh.
That's why you can take roses and toss them in your salad, and they add a little color, and they're delicious. And they don't taste even remotely like strawberries, but nonetheless, they are fun to play around with.
Wow, that I've never eaten roses either. I think I've eaten a few flowers, but I don't think roses are one of those. So,
Yeah, and they're high on my list of favorites because they'll decorate a salad really nicely. And then you use rose hips as concentrated vitamin C, so
hmm.
you can use those for making tea and all sorts of things.
Yeah, I do like rose hip tea. So, what is a rose hip though?
It is the bud that forms after the flower
Oh,
falls apart.
oh,
So the flower gets pollinated and then turns into the fruit, which is a rose hip.
hmm.
And you can either eat it or store it, or theoretically, I would imagine you would be able to plant it and get another rose to grow, but I've never experienced that. So,
Wow. Well, I just want to welcome everyone who's watching to our botanical and gastronomical, video cast here.
yes,
I'm definitely
absolutely.
learning a lot.
Well, you totter around on the planet for 70 years, and unless you're just blind and stupid, you do notice a few things. And having that Native American ancestry, I've always been drawn to enjoying the fruits of the earth and supporting, the activity of planting and harvesting and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. So those little tips, sometimes they'll maybe stick in my head, sometimes they'll fall out my other ear, but I do like hearing about all that. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we are now talking about resurrecting things here. Of course, that's what the whole process of nature is a constant death and resurrection. But this is a much deeper and much more profound concept of resurrection that we're looking at in A Course in Miracles.
Yeah, ultimately, when we talk about a resurrection in the Course, we're talking about the rebirth of light in the mind. And in a sense, it's not even a rebirth, it's not even a resurrection, because that light never left, that truth never has been absent. It's only our awareness that has been absent from it. So we, in a sense, have turned our back on the truth, and our job now is to start to turn back over and over and over again until we never turn away anymore. So in my mind, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the resurrection. We're really talking about more of a reawakening or a recognition of what is unchanging and what is true. as we let these sort of temporary and shifting things that show up in our lives, start to lose some of the importance that we give them. And it doesn't mean it's easy, but I think it's a good goal to have.
Absolutely. But, at the same time, the most salient point of this entire imagery and this entire story that we're working from and building upon was the resurrection of Jesus, when, he was able to step out of the tomb and arrive in that place of complete reunion with the Christ consciousness. So that, I think, is such a powerful story for so many people, that it is inspiration for all of us to really look at our beliefs about death and whether or not we want to continue that, death and then rebirth, death and rebirth process, when ultimately we're not going to really benefit from that, where we just go through the same journey over and over again with multiple variations. And it's as you really step back and look at it in depth, it becomes completely pointless.
Yeah, it's hard to believe because we put so much importance on all the things that happen in our lives. We feel like everything we do, it's important, whether we did it right thing or we did the wrong thing. It always is really feeling intense, and what we don't realize is we kind of just have set it up this way, that all the ups and downs that happen on a personal level don't really affect that deeper truth. And I agree with you that the story of Jesus's resurrection is such a compelling and powerful and moving example of the meaninglessness of the body, that he went through such a painful experience, normally would be a painful experience, being crucified on the cross. And he says in the Course so plainly that that was actually a message of love that he was teaching. And he was teaching that what he was could not really be hurt. And I think some of that message got obscured or lost in the retelling in the Bible. But in the Course, he's very clear about what that was, and that the guiltless mind cannot suffer. And it's very clear that at that point he had released all of the guilt from his mind, so there was absolutely no suffering at all in his experience. And that's why when his body was laid aside, he could pick up another body. He could manifest that and show up that way to give more teachings and guidance to the disciples, to help them on their journey, to let them know that death was not real. And I can only imagine the experience of seeing someone that has just been killed, standing there right in front of you. It must have been pretty shocking.
Oh, I think it must have been, in many ways, a horrific experience to go through, the darkness of the crucifixion, and then to encounter this person. That's why Thomas, I think, was the one who really had trouble being able to process that, and had to actually touch the wound in order to be able to be at peace with the idea that the body had been resurrected and life had continued in spite of the appearance or the illusion of death. And very very much in line with that, the first sentence in this particular section, number 28, what is resurrection, comes along with very simply, the resurrection is the overcoming or surmounting of death. It is a reawakening or a rebirth, a change of mind about the meaning of the world. And it is the acceptance of the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the world's purpose, the acceptance of the atonement for oneself. So, basically that first thought is that even though we created death as this idea that would allow us to experience separation and embrace separation, it ultimately it ultimately is meaningless because it can't be made real. It can only be made real in the realm of bodies, but it can't be made real in the realm of our truth and our spiritual existence.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of startling when we get that this whole world was made up to prove that death is real. Um, it's it seems like maybe the world would have a different purpose, but we understand as we study this that that's why this world is here. It's to show us that death is true. It's to give us evidence that death actually does occur, and we see it all around us. There's nothing here that lives without something else dying. There's nothing here that seems to be alive now, any body in its current form that will last indefinitely. So in some way, everything here dies. Um, it's a it's kind of a cruel place if we really look at it with open eyes, and most of us don't want to look at it that clearly, or we maybe want to kind of look at it with rose-colored glasses. We talk about the circle of life. Well, if we're really honest, it's a circle of death. One animal eats another, eats another, eats another. It's like it's a cycle that doesn't end here in time and space, but it does end in the mind when we awaken, when we step into that place of resurrection. Then we do step beyond the idea of death completely, and it might seem like a stretch for us to do that, but again, it's really the only goal worth having. Um, when we reawaken to the Christ that we really are, then we let go of all fear, we let go of all pain, we let go of all suffering, and I know that sounds pretty good to me. I mean, I know I've got some more healing to do on my journey before I get there, but to be free of all of that, yeah, sign me up.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and continuing with that first paragraph, it says, going back to the idea of resurrection as it is described here, it is the end of dreams of misery and the glad awareness of the Holy Spirit's final dream. So the dream of misery will begin to dissolve and be replaced by a much happier dream as we continue to progress toward completely embracing the idea of the resurrection and the atonement. It says it is the recognition of the gifts of God. Well, the gifts of God to us are that we were created in God's image and likeness. We are invulnerable, we are unlimited, and we are eternal. So those are pretty powerful gifts. And why would we step away from that? Why would we reject this magnificence that is our truth in order to be down here rolling around in a mud ball?
Well, I don't know. When you put it that way, Chris, it doesn't sound so bad, rolling around in a mud ball.
Well, especially after these fresh rains, but you roll around in it too long, and then all of a sudden the worms start showing up, and it gets really messy then.
That is true. I hear what you're saying. It just reminds me of this painting I just did. That it's basically just yellow spirals, and to me, it was kind of evocative of that truth. That there's really no meaningful distinction here. It's just all the same, and I think that's what we come to experience in ourselves as we awaken. We see the differences maybe still with our eyes, with our senses, but the differences start to mean less and less and less, and we get that what really matters is actually the same between all of us. And what really matters is that we can all choose love instead of fear. We all have access to both emotions, to both states of being, and we all have the ability to choose the Holy Spirit, even if we wouldn't use those words. Everyone has the capacity for kindness. It just might not be a habit that they have made very readily. They don't have it very easily accessible to them, but it is always available.
That is definitely the truth. And um, ultimately, also, is to remove ourselves from living in that state of fear. If you look at American society, well, global society, really, everywhere on the planet, people are driven by fear. They are turned into beasts that can be herded and stampeded, and that constant fear is always attached to our belief that we are a physical body and that we can get hurt. And to elevate your thought, to elevate your identity to the level of your spiritual truth is a powerful step in accessing that idea of the resurrection, because you're stepping away from something that can be crushed and mangled and destroyed. So, fear is the greatest source of sorrow that we have on the planet, and this does not have to be.
Yeah, that is such a good point, and I think it fits right in. Going on to the next paragraph here, the resurrection is the denial of death, being the assertion of life. Thus is all the thinking of the world reversed entirely. So we're really turning this whole thing on its head. We're getting that, again, the thought system of endings and beginnings, a thought system of shift and change. It's not really a stable foundation for us to find our rest and our peace. If we want something here in the world to be a certain way and our happiness is dependent on that, maybe we get that thing. Maybe we feel that stability for a day, a year, maybe even a decade or two. But at some point, that thing that seems to be making you safe here in the world is going to change. And then what? Are you left out in the cold? Are you abandoned? Are you hurt? So that's why it's ideal. It's so much better of an idea for us to choose what is unchanging, to choose what doesn't let us down, to choose what will never abandon or betray. And that is the eternal love of the Father for the Son. That is the eternal love of God for you.
And love is actually the life force. It is the foundation for everything else, which is so uh, obviously non-apparent in this realm. Nothing is based on love. Everything is based on fear and doubt and getting what you think you need. Whereas the true realm that we exist in is realm of eternal extension or giving, because we are so full of love that we are compelled to extend it in all directions to all who are around us. So it is very much a negative positive uh, set of images that we come up with here, and ultimately, I think the at the core of all of us, even though our ego fights and resists and is horrified at the thought of embracing the atonement and experiencing this resurrection, I think that it is the one bright burning desire that is lodged in each and every soul that inhabits the planet.
Wow, that is a beautiful statement, and I think it's why ultimately, we are all going back to that state of oneness, because that truth in us, it can be denied, it can be forgotten, it can be covered over, but it can't be extinguished. It can't be undone. We can't not be what we are. It's just such a cool idea that I think it's so reassuring for those of us who are, we're kind of sometimes struggling in the night as we're journeying back to that light within.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very, very true. Well, we've got a lot of material to cover here in the resurrection, just as we looked at death for 3 or 4 episodes. So We are moving toward the Memorial Day weekend. Everybody's getting ready to run up north or run down south or travel here and there.
Just
And,
drive in circles, you know.
yeah, well, that's what I do. I just get out and try to be as visible as I'm driving in circles as possible. So, kind of like the ice cream truck. Remember the old ice cream truck?
Do you put a little boombox on the roof of your car while you drive around?
I have contemplated that, but I haven't actually arrived at that point yet. But that could very well happen. But anything coming up in the near future here, Barrett?
Yeah, I think the big thing is our next event, June 5th. You and I are doing a Course in Miracles afternoon, a Step into the Light, a transformation in Alsip, Illinois. I am doing actually another course talk the day before on June 4th, Saturday morning. That's in Glenview, Illinois. That's called Good News. So our topic for that one is going to be the messages from Jesus. So focusing in on the topics and the course that really are Jesus speaking in the first person. So yeah, a few different Course in Miracles things. And I think almost everyone knows about the Weekend of Freedom retreat that I'm one of the organizers of, coming up June 16th through 19th in Estes Park, Colorado. So we'd love to have you come to that if that speaks to you. Gary Renard, Cindy Renard, David Hoffmeister, and a half a dozen other course teachers are going to be there. So it's just going to be a great time. Yeah, all kinds of good things in the works and more to come.
And that definitely is going to be an ideal time to show up in Estes Park, because that's up in the high country in Colorado, and it will be warm days, cool nights, and geographically it's one of the most beautiful places, I think, in North America. I think that people who do go there are going to be edified on every level by the content of the experience, as well as by the environment that they're able to participate or interact with.
Yeah. So for sure, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about any of these events. And yeah, hopefully I'll meet you in person soon.
There you go. Well, Barrett, I will see you in a week, and we will be reconvening in the month of June. So May has been a long month, so we'll see what happens in June.
That's true. I'm guessing it's going to be about 30-ish days.
Probably, but I don't know. The Earth seems like it wobbles every once in a while, so who knows?
All right. Well, have a great Memorial Day weekend, Chris.
You as well, Barrett. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Bye.